You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Well, good evening, Radio 1 listeners. It's Friday, May 5th, 2023, the day before my birthday. Good to be here with you again this week. We've got another exciting show for you. Today, our guest will be Dr. Julianne Malvo. She's always our first guest. She's going to talk with us about politics and the economy. My second guest this week is someone very important. She is Melissa Byrd, Senior Deputy Director for Medicaid at the Department of Health Care Finance. We will be talking about how on April 1st, 2023, just a little over a month ago, Medicaid renewals began as the continuous coverage requirements have expired. When we come back, we will be talking to Melissa Byrd about some things you must do to keep your coverage going. So tell your friends to tune in so they can hear all about the details from both of our guests. Now let's go to Dr. Julianne Malvo. She is a nationally known economist. She's a dean at Cal State Los Angeles, and she is one of two president emeritus from Bennett College. She has her PhD in economics. She's a world traveler, speaker, president of Push Excel, the youth organization founded by Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson out of Chicago, Illinois. So hello, Dr. J. How are you today? I hope you're doing great. We're going to talk to her today about politics. Dr. J, do your thing.
Okay, most of the news that I want to talk about this week is economic news. President Biden has invited the four top leaders in the House, the two in the House and two in the Senate, Kevin McCarthy, Hakeem Jeffries, and in the Senate, Charles Schumer and Mitch McConnell, who are four top leaders, Democrat and Republican. He's invited them to the White House on May 9th. The reason for the meeting is to deal with the debt ceiling issue. As we know, the McCarthy has been playing brinksmanship. He's been talking about he's connected the debt ceiling to the deficit, and they're two different things. And he wants to reduce all non-defense spending by 22%. That's one out of all non-defense spending. So he keeps defense at the level it is, but he would cut Social Security, Medicaid, food stamps, arts, humanities. Just go down the list. He would cut off climate change or environment. He would cut all those things by 22%. That's a huge cut, and President Biden has heretofore said that he would not allow it. What he said is that he would veto any changes like that came through, and so there may be a stalemate. Here's the problem. If we do not raise the debt ceiling, we default on our international debt. We could put the world into a recession, not just the United States, but the world into a recession. And so this is very, very problematic, very, very frightening, and the Republicans seem to be tone deaf. The flip side is, of course, the Senate is not going to pass that. The way it works is that the bill goes from the House to the Senate. The Senate and the House try to compromise, and the legislation has to pass the Senate. So we don't think it will pass. But if there is a stalemate, what ends up happening is the likelihood, of course, is that we end up defaulting on our debt. Janet Yellen, who is the Secretary of the Treasury, former chair of the head of the Fed, has said that we will run out of money as of June 1st. Now, this is a much earlier estimate than she's given us in the past. In the past, she said, say, mid-June. But now she's saying it will be June 1st. And so that means that there are really 3 weeks for people to scramble around and to get this legislation done. So this is the biggest, to me, it's the biggest news there is. And, of course, it is economic news, but it's important economic news that has extreme political and also social implications. So May 9th, Tuesday, May 9th is D-Day, as in the first day that they're all going to get together and talk. This is the first time that McCarthy and Biden have talked about the debt limit. So this is really, it's an issue. And we're hoping that McConnell, all of these people have been through debt limit negotiations in the past. It's never been this political. It's always been passed by rote. There have been other aspects that have been political, but the debt limit, this is a showdown, and it's a showdown that may not have good consequences. So people should pay attention to that. If you live in a Republican district, you should be writing your congressperson or calling them to say, stop the brinksmanship. Just stop the brinksmanship. It's really important. Now, in other economic news, the interest rate, the Fed just on Wednesday raised the interest rate by 1/4 point. What does that mean? They're still concerned about inflation, but we've seen raises as high as 0.5 point, 3/4 point. So this 1/4 point, 0.25%, is better than we might have expected. But it still has implications. If you're trying to borrow money to buy a car or a home, what we're seeing is basically borrowing costs going up to record highs. And that means that this will stifle some economic growth. If you are planning to buy a house, the interest rate is going to be higher, which means your payments will be higher, which means it'll limit what you can afford. Ditto a car. And now the average cost of automobiles is roughly $45,000. There are only 3 cars that you can buy that cost less than $25,000. So we're basically in a situation where these rising interest rates are having implications on the quality of life. The economic news is, quite frankly, not great. On another note, First Republic Bank is one of the largest bank failures that we've seen in the last decade, First Republic Bank. And, of course, the Biden administration has said they will bail them out. Well, I feel some kind of way about this. Black banks have failed and they've never bailed them out. And, of course, they say these banks are too big to fail. Well, what's too big to fail and what's too small, and why does this keep happening? But look at the First Republican Bank. And individually, people, if you happen to have more than $250,000, put it in 2 different banks. The FDIC only insures deposits up to $250,000. Now, on another note, and this has less to do with economics or politics and more to do with our future, the Wall Street Journal just reported the Department of Education said that 8th grade test scores on history and civics are the lowest that we've seen in a very long time. Only 13%, that's 1 in 6, 1 in 7, young people are proficient in history. Only 1 in 5 are proficient in civics. So that means they don't know how a bill becomes a law. These young people do not understand what's going on with this debt ceiling, and this is a problem. And so we're finding more ignorance, and we're finding more ignorance at a time when a certain party is celebrating ignorance by trying to take ethnic studies out of the schools, trying to take race theory out of the schools, and basically all of that. So we're basically at a time, if you will, where we're seeing major challenges around the economy and major challenges around knowledge, mm-hmm. what our young people know and what they don't know. Let me end. I think we talked about this a little bit before, but the tributes are coming in for Harry Belafonte. We will miss him. We will all miss him. He is such an amazing, not only a entertainer, but more importantly, a civil rights leader. I am so sick of the mainstream media playing Deo. You know, they keep playing Deo when they introduce him. But what a colleague of mine said is, listen to the lyrics of Deo. It really was an economic protest song. Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me bananas. In other words, count the bananas I picked so I can go home. Daylight come and I want to go home. Mm-hmm. So, you know, but there's so much more to him than Deo, and I wish that some of these folks would play some of the wonderful quotes and remember that he supported the King family after Dr. King was assassinated.
Yes.
I think I'll stop there, Lyndia, I think I'll stop there. I just think the economic news is troubling. The economic news is troubling, and the political news is troubling. And the knowledge news is troubling as well.
Thank you, Dr. Julian. You brought us all up to date, and we thank you for that. Now we're going to go to our commercial break, and when we return, we will hear all about what's going on with Medicaid here in the District of Columbia, and maybe all over the country. I don't know, but we're going to find out from Melissa Byrd. Back in a moment.
it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Washington Informer religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Who Moved My Cheese is a book about two types of people, those who accept change quickly and move on, and those who hem and haw and try to figure things out. They didn't see change coming and waste valuable time trying to figure out what happened, how did this happen to me. Let's call this group procrastinators. The lesson inside the cheese story is simple. Life is change. Brother said it best when he said, if I accept you as you are, I will make you worse. However, if I treat you as though you are what you're capable of becoming, I help you become that. We must change and keep moving. The Bible tells us to seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open unto you, ask and it shall be given.
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at washingtoninformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
This is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., located at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest on the Green Line. Did you know that a recent study found that children who visit museums do better in school and in life than children who do not? So parents, teachers, and preachers, let's get moving. I promise you, if you bring your children to the African American Civil War Museum, they will be inspired by the images that they see. They will be impressed by our living history reenactors who are always available, and they will be involved in our scavenger hunt that takes them throughout our exhibit. That's the African American Civil War Museum, 1925 Vermont Avenue. Our hours are 10 to 6:30 on weekdays, 12 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. See it. Be inspired.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lyndia Grant Show. Now we're going to go to our second guest. I'm really excited about her. She is Melissa Byrd. So welcome, Melissa, the Medicaid Director for the District of Columbia. And she's here to share some important changes that's going on in Medicaid. Starting April 1st this year, about a month ago, Medicaid renewals began as the continuous coverage requirements have expired. The District of Columbia will be conducting full redeterminations for all Medicaid beneficiaries from April 2023 all the way through next year, May 2024. And so, Melissa, welcome to today's show. Let's talk to our listeners out there about what's going on with Medicaid. You know, we have a large church audience on Spirit 1340, and this is going to be very important. Talk to us today, Melissa. Welcome to the show.
Well, and thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to talk to folks about their Medicaid coverage and what they need to do to make sure they can keep their Medicaid coverage and access to their doctors and prescriptions. So as you mentioned at the beginning, the Medicaid renewals restarted beginning April 1st of 2023, and for the next 14 months until May of 2024, we have to renew everyone's Medicaid coverage who is currently on the program. For some folks, this will be familiar. For other folks who just came to Medicaid during the pandemic or since March 2020, this is going to be something new because we haven't done this renewal since March 2020 and the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay, so you all have gotten a lot of new people that came in during the pandemic?
Yes, the Medicaid program in the district has grown by about 50,000 residents since March 2020. And so right now we have about over 300,000 district residents on the Medicaid program. And over the next 14 months, folks are going to have to renew their coverage to keep their Medicaid. And so there's a couple things we're asking all Medicaid enrollees or beneficiaries to do. Right now, we're asking folks to don't wait to update their contact information. If someone has moved, changed their phone number, changed their email address, we need to know so that when it's time for us to ask for the Medicaid renewal information, we know that we are going to the right place, the right address, the right person to get that information.
Melissa, let me ask you a question. Will someone come to them, or will they need to come down to your office?
Well, you don't have to come to our office unless you want to. There are a few different ways you can update your contact information. One is by calling 202-727-5355. Another way is going online on the internet to districtdirect.dc.gov. And then you can always go to an ESA service center. There are 5 service centers throughout the district, and you can go in person if you want to update your information.
And I ask that because there's some seniors that are not very good with computers, and they may not have anyone around to help them. So,
and I would say, yeah, for seniors in particular, you can that may already be familiar with the Department of Aging and Community Living, or they can go to the Department of Aging and Community Living and get some support and assistance with updating their contact information, or even when it's time for them to renew their Medicaid, the Department of Aging and Community Living can help them with that. That's something that we do in partnership, and they are the go-to resource for seniors. And if seniors also visit the district senior centers, they can get help in updating their contact information or doing their actual renewal at those senior centers as well.
And let me just ask, do you all have a lot of citywide publicity going on about it, like on the news shows, radio?
Well, we
do.
Yep, and in part thanks to you, of course. Hopefully folks have seen some bus ads throughout the city. You'll see ads that specifically say, don't wait to update. Again, asking folks to update their contact information. There have been folks from the Department of Healthcare Finance on the news, on different radio shows. We're visiting ANC meetings, going out to other community groups as we're asked to talk about the renewal and what to expect. We've also talked to folks that our beneficiaries are most likely to see, so doctors, behavioral health providers, pharmacies, to make sure that they know. And so when someone goes up to their pharmacy to renew their prescription, hopefully their pharmacist is going to remind them to look out for their Medicaid renewal sometime this year.
Well, and I want to ask if you have a 30 and a 60-second commercial, shoot that to me, because I can ask the folks at Radio 1 if they, I know you probably already have it, but sometimes coming from me on the inside helps too.
That's great to know. We'll definitely do that.
Send that to me, please.
We will
Go ahead and tell the folks what else they need so we won't run out of time.
No problem. So first thing, like I said, don't wait to update your contact information. And after you do that, wait and check the mail for your Medicaid renewal from the district government. Your Medicaid beneficiaries will receive a Medicaid renewal in the mail. They'll know it's from us when they see kind of a green bar under the return address, so that can kind of call attention to it. And then once you get that renewal paperwork, fill it out sooner than later and get it back before your coverage is due to end. So
they can't come in early. I guess like maybe you could do your driver's license just a week or two before they might let you do it, or do you have to wait until a certain date that's on that form?
Sure. So the thing to wait for is your notice that it's time for you to renew. And some folks will get that 60 days in advance, and some folks will get that about 90 days in advance. And once you get that advance notice, and that's the envelope that will come with the green bar under the return address, that's when it's time to act and to do something, whether it's go in person to a service center, call 202-727-5355, 877-227-5355, or go to districtdirect.dc.gov, or go to the Senior Center to get some assistance with completing your Medicaid renewal.
And Melissa, this includes everybody that's on Medicaid, right? Not some, all.
Exactly. It is everyone on Medicaid. There are some folks that won't have to do anything to renew their coverage because we can do something. We can check our system and confirm everything we need. And so for those folks, they'll still get something in the mail from us, but it will just be a notice that says your coverage is continuing. But everyone in the Medicaid program, in one way or the other, is having their eligibility renewed this year. And it's not just the district. This is happening in every Medicaid program across the nation because, as you mentioned at the beginning, it's the end of the continuous enrollment requirement that was part of the response to the COVID pandemic to make sure folks had continuous access to their coverage and care throughout the public health emergency.
Well, I thank you for being my guest today, and I'd also like to thank my friend and colleague, Dorinda White, for setting this interview up. And just give us your closing comments so we can go to our close.
Sure. Thanks so much for having us today. And again, folks, don't wait to update. Make sure we have your contact information and look for the mail, the green bar on your envelope with your Medicaid renewal, and renew your coverage so you can keep that access to your to care and keep yourself healthy.
All right. Thank you so much, Melissa Byrd from DHCF, coming to us today to talk about your mandatory renewal for your Medicaid services. All right, we thank you for being our guest today, and thank you, Dorinda White, for confirming Melissa. All right, we're going to go to our close now. Thank you for tuning in to the Lyndia Grant Show. That does it for us this week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and read the Religion Corner of the Washington Informer newspaper. We've been writing that corner now for 18 years. And I'd like to invite you to come out and join us at my church, All Nations Baptist Church, located at number 2 Rhode Island Avenue. If you don't have a church home, we've been there for more than 30 years. Our pastor is the Reverend Dr. James Coleman, and we start at 10:30 a.m. with Sunday school, and then our service is short, starting at 11:30. I close with this. Words, thoughts, and deeds have a boomerang effect, so be careful what you send out. Scripture says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So think on these things. From the Lyndia Grant Show, I'm your host, Lyndia Grant. Until next week.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.